Shooter, big deer. I can't believe that just happened. The dead deer. He dropped right where we had him. Yes! Oh my gosh. Holy crap. The great Hambino right here. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Today is March 21st, 2023, and today is a big day. Today is the wrap-up of one giant mistake. I know there's probably some tears shed of people listening to this. There's a little tear shed for me, too. I will say I've had more messages from people saying they want the whole podcast all year of these stories. And I'm like, that's awesome, but I don't know if I can do that. Like, maybe we need to start a One Giant Mistake podcast.
Now there's an idea, but when you're talking about maybe shedding a tear, I'll be honest. When we recorded our last episode for just this season, when we recorded it, it was like at the end of it, it was like, man, it was almost felt like this proud dad moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, like did it, seen it to the end. And went over better than I think we both expected, and we have some big things on the horizon. But I'm also looking forward to running the series again here in the future.
Yeah. So just so you guys know, we're gonna kick this off first and foremost. Next year in 2024, the same time frame, people loved this bridging this gap of coming off season. Don't really want to hear about tactics. I don't. You know what I mean? They just want to hear good stories. And we're going to do this again. We did 9 episodes this year. Probably shoot for about the same next year. But if you guys have any stories or come about something, you got a story brewing right now, and maybe something happens this year or maybe something happened in the past, hit us up. And we're gonna try to be at the forefront of this going into next year. Get these recorded. I mean, we were ahead of the ball on this. I mean, we were recording these well in advance, so it was no big deal. But I want to know about this coming into 2024 and kind of vetting these stories out. And David and I we're I don't know what the word is for it, but we're looking for different series. I mean, we're not going to become the series podcast. There is going to be some X's and O's podcast coming here soon. I mean, real soon. But we're trying to make things different. There's so many podcasts out there. We're trying to do things a little different, but also do things different, but like spruce it up for you and I, because this is, season 6 that I've been doing this, over 280 some episodes. Like, not that it gets boring, but like, I just don't want to talk about the same stuff over and over, like I want new stuff. So you probably feel the same way. But that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and when you say the X's and O's is for the guys that love that, and we do too at the right time, right? But even with these One Giant Mistakes, man, if you really listen to these series in these episodes, there is X's and O's. There's things to be learned, and all of our guests have done some major learning. But I got a message the other day from a guy, and I won't go through the whole message, but it kind of went like this. When he first heard about the series, that he thought it wasn't really just for him because maybe it wasn't about the success stories, right? But then he started listening, and it like he couldn't stop listening. He this is a big comparison, but he said he's like, I look forward to this more than I do Yellowstone the next week. So
wow, really?
I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not bullshitting you.
No way.
Dude, I swear I have it. He sent me a message on Instagram. It's exactly what he said, but it was like, we're reaching people of, like you said, bridging that gap, right? Because it's, yes, there's one giant mistake, but there is X's and O's. But it's relatable to guys, you know, and when we did this this last episode when we recorded it, I was thinking, what people are going to hear today. This happened a dozen years ago. And one thing that I learned about a lot of these podcasts, that us as deer hunters, like, things are just ingrained in our memory from these hunts. And it don't always have to be about giant deer. This series happens to be about, what I like to call world-class animals. But it's like, when you hear guys tell a story that happened, 10, 11, 12 years ago, and they remember dates, they remember where they were hunting, they remember what was going on in their life, they remember, were they thinking about quitting a job or, transferring in a different, like, they remember all those details. Where like, that is so interesting to me, because it's like, I'm like that. Every deer in this basement, I can remember dates and where I was hunting, but like, these guys didn't kill these deer, but it still meant that much to them. So it's, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I love the series. I think we did a great job with it. And not that I'm hoping this on anyone this year, because I hope you kill the animal you're after. But please, if something happens this year that does not go your way,
let us be the first ones.
Get a hold of us. Yeah.
Reach
out to Aaron or myself and let us know, and we'll get you on here.
First of all, the guy that reached out to you, when we get off here, you need to let me know his name, because we're going to get him a T-shirt for sure.
Okay.
I want to send a T-shirt out to him. I mean, that's huge, and thank you guys very much for doing that. Speaking of T-shirts, today is the last day that you guys can pre-order for the One Giant Mistake T-shirt, and we're trying to get this online store has been ridiculous. It's been a pretty big undertaking, but once we get it up and running, it'll be all good. It's coming. But tonight, we'll say, if you hit me up by midnight tonight, we'll accommodate you with getting a One Giant Mistake T-shirt. They're $30 shipped to your door. You can hit me up on Venmo or PayPal to pay. And basically, just to reiterate how a pre-order works, is like, we've been running it for a week now, and it's a little slower process, but now after today, tomorrow I'll call my guy that prints the shirts, and I'll say, hey, let's order the shirts. He orders them, the right sizes, the right amount, and gets them in. Then he prints on them, and then he gives them to me, and then I ship them out. So the beauty of a pre-order is that you get the right amount of T-shirts, and you don't have a whole bunch of overhead, which we're going to get into with this online store. That's the beauty of it. The con of it is it takes a little bit longer. That's all. So these shirts are really cool. I think they're neat, and it's this whole series is kind of taken on a story of its own, to be honest with you. And to furthermore David's point on today's episode, it's different than any episode you've heard so far in this series. First of all, right off the rip, these guys are sitting by a campfire down in East Texas. It's 50 degrees. When I look outside, there's snow all over. It's 50 degrees. They got a couple beers. They're living it up like deer camp. So the audio is deer camp audio, just off the rip. It is. But I don't want that to deter you guys. Did I say that right? Deter you?
Yeah.
Deter. Yeah, I think I said that right.
Detour. Detour. You guys.
Detour. Whatever. I don't want that to like turn you guys off to this podcast, because the story of this podcast, it goes beyond deer hunting. There is a father and son that play a big role in this podcast. There is now a friend that this giant deer brought these people together. Okay? If you listen to last week's podcast, our guest, Jared, lost two best friends and a girlfriend over a deer. Okay? Not because of what Jared did, I in my opinion. It's not like some ill will he did. But that more times than not, that's what we hear. Breaking friendships, breaking relationships, what it is. We're talking about deer. I love them literally just as much as anybody listening to this or the diehard deer hunter. I love deer, but I do not let them get in the middle of a friendship or a relationship, first and foremost.
I 100% agree with you, dude. Like, we talk about this at the end of this podcast, because more often than not, unfortunately, part of this series brought kind of the bad side of what big deer do to people,
Yep.
But when you talk about this podcast being kind of like that deer camp feel, now I hope every one of you guys is listening to this on a Tuesday morning. But if you're not, please go home, open a beer tonight, and listen to this thing, because I grabbed a beer when this podcast started, and then when I seen these guys from Texas sitting around a campfire and it looked like they had a cooler, I grabbed a couple more beers for this podcast tonight.
For sure. And I don't want you to, there might be this aura of Texas, of high fence, and because there's a lot of high. This is free range. This is father and son chasing, kind of a ghost in a way, like in the I don't want to get into it because you're going to hear the story. It is at the end, it's kind of a tearjerker, but I'm going to go back to like Tony, the guy that was chasing this deer for years. I'm going to pick on you a little bit, Tony, but we did in the podcast. He pulled out a tactic that I've never heard of before, ever. I don't think anybody's ever done this. He might be a 1%er, and he regrets it now. I will say this: he can't. He's yelling at the radio or right now. He's like, no. He's like, I was. I do want to defend him. He was very young in his hunting journey, and he even told me, he's like, this is something I would never ever do again. And what he did was like, that's just what he thought was right at the right time, and it did work. It did work, but I'm just gonna hang that little fruit there just for you. So, but yeah, back to the audio part of this. These guys are sitting around a campfire, drinking some beers, having a good time like you would in Texas or anywhere else around deer camp, and it's a good conversation. I really thoroughly enjoyed this, and I think it was the perfect way to end this series this year. So I don't know.
Yeah.
What did you think about it?
No, I 110% agree. And if you're listening to this, finish listening to this, in your earbuds or in the radio. But if you get a chance, on the video version of this, these guys have the deer we're talking about, hanging up in the background. And we're sitting here talking about Texas this, Texas that. Hey, first time the series heads to Texas, so that was really exciting for me. But when I first looked at this deer, nothing about this deer looked like Texas to me. Zero.
This is a Midwestern deer.
100% it looks like it. It looks like it looks like something that could come out other than his antler size. His face, his head, his body looks like something out of Michigan, the Midwest, just like that, But I thoroughly enjoyed, we had some cliff notes of it, so we kind of were like, maybe we hang this on for, the very last episode. But as the episode went on, I'm watching these two, what now they're really good friends interact, and then the son of the one guy, my heart was happy that we saved this, because man, there has just been some stories that just like we've talked about, where it's like, I can't believe people allow that to happen between friendships or families or neighbors, where it's like, this is just no matter the size of this deer, which he's a giant, but no matter the size of this deer, the way this story played out, it's exactly how things should be, in my opinion.
For sure. Yep. I got a question for you. This is not the question of the week, but I got a question for you. Think back 3.5 months ago when we were kind of, brainstorming a series. It started off like I've got notes on my phone, and it started off as one thing, and then it kind of like formulated into what it is today, or what it is when we started it. Think back then, what was your expectations out of this story, or out of this series? Like, what were you hoping to get out of it?
Man, I'm going to be honest. It exceeded all my expectations. One, I didn't ever think that we would have the people reaching out like they did. I mean, honestly, guys, we could probably run this thing for a year if we really wanted to.
We could run it for a year if we wanted to.
Yeah.
There could be 52 episodes of it.
Yeah, like for real. Like there's guys out there that have all kinds of stories where it's like, and maybe that's part of what's surprised me, where it's like, let's find some guys that, they've made some mistakes. But me, like I'm a big learning guy, and I'm a big guy, learning from mistakes kind of personality. So I said, in my mind, I'm like, let's go get a handful of those guys. But it's like there's a whole world out there like that, a whole world, and like we're kind of like handpicking like just some stories where it's like, hey guys, like we're gonna bring this back because hey, guess what? We're the ones that started this series. The Fall did, just on record. We started this.
Yep.
That we're gonna bring it back, and it's fully exceeded my expectations, buddy. I could not be happier. I mean, hey, cheers to you, bud. Honestly, like,
cheers to me. Cheers to both of us. We were in this together,
Yeah.
man. This wasn't
Yeah.
a dog,
Yeah.
or this wasn't a one trick pony here. This was, my expectations coming into this. I didn't know what to expect, and honestly, I didn't think it was going to come off the way it did. And my biggest takeaway of this was, well, let's be honest. When we first started talking about it, it's like, out of all the content out there, whether it be YouTube, podcast, TV, whatever it might be, what is one of the things that people don't show? And if they do show it, it's not a ton of it. It's the mistake.
Yep.
They don't.
Yep.
Because people want to be portrayed in a fake light. As blunt as you want me to put it, they want to be not a fake light. They want to be portrayed, a fake light. They don't want to be portrayed as like, oh, I missed a deer. Shit. Oh, the deer blew and I never saw him again before. Bro, that's part of it. You're not fooling anybody. Nobody out there is batting 1,000 deer hunting. Don't care who you, unless you're in a high fence somewhere, and still you're probably getting, smelt or blown at or something like that. So nobody's batting 1,000. Nobody. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this series wasn't to like try to like throw shade at people by any means. This was just like, let's do just something different. Let's talk about these unbelievable stories, but hey, guess what? It didn't turn out right for you. And like, that's cool to me because nobody shows that. It was a big barrier for me to come over of like, crap, I missed a deer. How am I going to talk about this on my podcast early on? It's like, man, I don't want to talk about that. No, that's how you grow. That's how you are relatable. That's how you are. You and I are just like the next freaking dude. That was the big, like, driver to this series. And now looking back on it, I didn't think it was going to be as big as it has gotten. And I'm that wasn't the goal of it. But the goal was just to bridge a gap in the months that we just hate hearing about tactics. I don't care who you are. There's 1-2% of people out there that are hunters that like really right now are like, yeah, give me wind mapping right now. I want to hear about that. Like, that's okay if you want to, but man, get burnt out every once in a while. You know what I mean? Let's let it breathe a little bit. So we're coming with that stuff. We got another deal getting, we know there's something big coming, soon. So, just be ready. Hold on your hat, So, I don't know. It's been fun though. And honestly, I'm glad we got to pull out the little intricacies of all these stories that, when we asked these guests for like outlines and stuff like that, like give us an outline, and then all of a sudden like a ball gets dropped and it's like, whoa, we didn't know that. Like, let's unpack that bag. Let's do it. I love that part about it. Yep.
Yeah. I look back. I can think back of like early December when we kind of, we're texting, we're phone calls back and forth, toying the idea. And if I remember correctly, this was kind of like a January idea, right? Like, hey, let's give us 4 or 5 weeks if we can just make it through January. Like, something like you said, something to bridge that gap, something for the off season. Hell, I can remember sitting here with my family and running ideas, and Madeline's like, "Hey, call it One Giant Mistake," and we're like, "Love it."
Yeah,
Perfect.
Your daughter named the frickin' series.
Yeah, yeah. But you know what? I heard you say this word a couple times in the comments you just made. It's the word stories. And maybe it's just because that, our personalities is we love the stories of things. It's, we don't, yeah, everyone likes to see like the kill shot, but I want to see the story. Like I don't care about the 2-minute kill shot. Like, give me 20 minutes of a story. I want to hear about it. And maybe that's what drew us to these stories so much. We're like, yeah, it didn't end most of the time for the hunter like they wanted it to, but they still had a freaking story. And that's what we loved about it. And I think that's what everyone listening and, commenting to us and liking and sharing all these, they love the stories too. So no matter if it ended with a kill or a one giant mistake, there's still a story to be had and told with every one of these guests.
Yep, 100%, man. With that being said, we're gonna transition here a little bit, but I do want to reiterate, we do have a pre-order gonna end tonight on One Giant Mistake T-shirts. So they're next level T-shirts. That's the brand of them. They're very high-end T-shirts. They're good quality. It's got a One Giant Mistake. We came up with a logo, One Giant Mistake on them. $30 shipped to your door. Hit me up in the DMs on IG if you guys want one. We're paying through Venmo or PayPal right now, so if you guys want one, hit me up. Tonight will be the end of her, but we will have them on the website probably at some point. But it's just trying, being so small that we are, we're SKUs. We're not trying to boil the ocean. We just want to get things out there, and then we're going to start trickling more designs and everything out there. So I want to reiterate that. I want to say thank you.
And then I got to tell the listeners too, like these are the same quality T-shirts that you guys have gotten from the Fall Podcast, in the past. But, these are the OG of the One Giant Mistake series T-shirts. Like, these
first
are
ones ever ran.
First ones, like, you got to be part of it. You got to go get yourself one.
Could be framed up. I got a lot of frames behind me. It could be framed up. Shadow box, something like that.
Shadow box for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Get yourself two then, so you can wear one and put one on your wall.
I had one guy ask, he's like, "Can you and David sign the shirt for me?" And I'm like,
no, he didn't.
I swear. And I'm like, I'm like happy that like that's very cool and flattering and humbling, but like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to do that.
Okay. Hey, to the guy that asked it, I will buy your shirt. And if that's truly what you want, we'll sign it. I'll buy it. I'll ship it to you.
There you go. You heard it from David. We'll do it. Let's get into some partner reads here. Then we're going to do the question of the week, and then we'll get into this episode. So partner reads, I'm looking at my cheat sheet because I gotta do that. I don't remember things from week to week. So Helix Broadheads first and foremost, guys. If you guys looking for new broadheads this year, look no further than the Helix Broadhead. They got the FJ2, which is just the OG, the right bevel, single bevel, just, that's all it is, really. It's the FJ2. FJ4 is the new one from this year. I shot this all year this year. It's got bleeders, and they're awesome. They fly so true. I think they even fly more true than the original FJ2 with no bleeders. Single bevel, right bevel. If you guys are wanting to try these out, use the code FALLHX10 to save some money on that. And their other company, America's Best Bowstrings, which David and I should be getting our new strings this week. If you guys want to save some money on some new custom strings, that you guys can go on americasbestbowstrings.com and you can check out their string builder. Now, David did this. I did this as well. Very intuitive. Like the colors are pretty true on the website to what you're going to be getting as well. What you're seeing is basically what you're going to be getting. I'm a big speckled guy. I love the speckled because I used to run all the twists. Like you get 2 or 3 color twists, and I'm like, to me, that's now like almost looks like it's stock because a lot of strings come twisted. But like I like the speckled. So this year I'm going, oh boy, put myself on the spot. Gunmetal gray speckled with, oh boy. Now I can't remember. Green speckled, maybe?
Did you go green? You went with the green bow, so maybe you went with the green speckled.
I think I went green speckled, but I went double speckled. The heat shrink, which I mean by heat shrink, I should have my bow with me, but I don't. It's the three. There's 3 like speed knocks. I'm going to call them speed knocks on top and bottom of your string. Those are wrapped in ABB. It says ABB, and you can get those at a different color as well. I just went black on mine. You can even change the color you're serving. You can go clear serving. You can go black. You can go a couple different colors. I just went black because I like black. So what color did you go with this year?
All right, so I went black serving, the black heat shrink, with the white ABB. But then Aaron talked me into this speckled thing. We'll see. I've never gotten that before.
It's the way to go.
It went speckled, like grayish silver, and then I went speckled, sunset orange. So
yep.
It should look good on the black on black bow that I have sitting here now.
Yeah, so if you guys want to try out those strings, we're shooting both platinums. It's kind of a good, better, best deal. Platinum's the high grade, and then you got premium and pursuit. My dad shoots a pursuit on his bow. He's had it on for 4 years now. Thing still looks immaculate. If you guys want to use the code THEFALL at checkout to save some money on that. Next, we're going to go to Latitude Outdoors. Go to latitudeoutdoors.com, and you can use the code THEFALLPODCAST, all one word, all lowercase, and save some money on your next purchase there. Exodus Trail Cams, ExodusOutdoorGear.com. We should be getting the new Rivals here soon. I can't wait to get them on my hands, just kind of check them out. But I want to talk about the Render real quick. I've been using the Render for 2 years now, and I've been using I put out 2 solar panels this year, SB18 solar panels, and they've been working tremendously well, and I thoroughly enjoy those cameras. It's a confidence thing, just like anything. I know when I put it out, it's going to work. It's going to send me pictures. They're going to be good pictures, and I've just never had issues with them. So go check them out, ExodusOutdoorGear.com. Method Archery, check those out. So if you want any arrows, our arrows should be probably coming in this week. We both went ZMRs this year. Dave's is a little lighter than mine just because of the point weight we have, but use the code FALL10 to save some money on arrows, custom arrows. They're a big partner of Tack this year, the Total Archery Challenge, so they're making like Tack specific arrows right now. Go check them out. They're doing great things. Vector, I've been shooting them for 2 years now. Awesome arrows. I don't want to switch. I just love them. Go ahead.
When you mentioned about the Tack thing, not only are they making Tack like exclusive arrows for the Tack events, I also seen that they plan on being at all the Tack events, bringing the I think probably the highest bought arrows. So like if you have an issue at Tack and you need to get a handful more, they're gonna have arrows for you right on site at all Tack events, from what I understand.
Yeah. So and just to kind of go a little bit on that, last year when we went up to Tack, they literally, Isaac called me and was like, hey, because usually at Tack they have these like steel targets. They wanted me to shoot the arrows into the steel and see how many shots it would take for it to break. Mine took 4 shots, I believe it was, for one arrow, and it was sketchy shooting because I'm like, this thing's going to blow up at me. And it did not. 4 times, and it finally broke. They're tough arrows, man. And what they did is they replaced my arrows. They gave me another dozen. And they did that to a couple people that aren't even being partnered with them. Like, just random people is like, hey, here's an arrow. Go shoot it. We're going to replace all your arrows. We'll give you a dozen. I don't know if they're going to do that this year, but like what David said, they're going to make it right. Good company out of Wisconsin. Thoroughly enjoy working with them. So, Method Archery, check them out. So next is Garmin Bow Sights, and just got off the phone with Brandon Brinkman over at Garmin last week. Re-upping for 23. Looks like everything's a go. I'm super excited because but I've even said it before. I wasn't partnered with these guys before, and I just love their sights. They are, and now we've got guys coming on, guests saying, don't give me shit about not using a Garmin. Cameron Loving, I'm calling you out right now. Giving me crap about not using Garmin. And I actually did an episode with a couple buddies the other weekend that nobody will ever get to hear because I deleted it. Yes, I did do that. But 2 of my buddies on there were like, don't give me shit because I'm not shooting a Garmin. And guess what? They both bought Garmins this year, so let's go. Let's go.
He's fired up, boys.
I'm fired up. But if you guys want to know more about that, their watches or their sights, go to Garmin.com. Last but certainly not least, David is wearing the hat. It's Prime Archery. We are involved with those guys. We're both shooting the Rev X2s this year. Awesome bows. Finally got them. And can't wait to get it set up. Waiting for my string. Just waiting for my string to build it, and we're good to go.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to shooting that thing, man.
For sure. Okay, let's get to this. This is the longest intro we've ever done. We're at 30 minutes right now, which is okay because it's our show. We can do whatever the heck we want.
You got that right.
Let's get into the questions. You throw first. What do we got?
All right. Okay, buddy. So we're at the end of One Giant Mistake series, and I've seen both sides to it, and I'm pretty sure I know your answer. But I think this is a great question for this week. Is there any size caliber animal walking this country that you would ruin a friendship or a relationship for?
Nope, not one.
I know it.
Doesn't even matter animal either. I mean, you could give me a 80-inch moose.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I knew, but it's something. I knew your answer, buddy. That's why we're buddies, right? Like I couldn't be friends with someone that would be like, oh yeah, 215 inches, and I'd put you in the ditch for it. You know what I mean? But no, it's I just thought it was just an interesting question for kind of coming to the end, because we went full circle with some of these guests. We've seen both sides to it. So yeah.
Okay, so my question is regarding to this whole series as a whole. Did you learn anything from this series? Anything. Could be, I'm just looking for one thing. What did you learn from the series?
Oh, there's multiple things I learned.
What's the one that stands out big time?
I'm not going to necessarily say learned, but I'm going to say confirmed more in my head, in my mind. And it's something that I watch closely, but I've heard it in multiple episodes, and it's historical data. Like it, if someone was to go back, now that they heard me say that, and if they went back through all 9 episodes and listen for that, I bet you half of them that plays in to a part of their hunting. I guarantee it does.
Yeah, I would agree with you, but I'm going to take a step further. Not to one up you, but just
that was a great question. Like that's your best question so far. I like it.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I like it. It was a great question for ending the series. It really was.
I think it needed to be said, or asked for the end of the series. But okay, so you said that. I'm not one upping you here. I'm just want to kind of like take it a little further.
No, go for it.
So historical data is one, but the other one is that these top end deer are loners. It's been something through the whole series. They're loners. And honestly, not just if we got all the other guests on this podcast at once, they'd probably tell you like, oh yeah, but a certain time of year, I did see him with a couple different deer, but no, I really don't think it's that. I honestly think throughout the whole year and all these years they chase these deer, these bigger bucks, there's more mature deer are like just they want to be by themselves. Majority of them are subordinate, not aggressive, and that intrigues me. That intrigues me to the point of like I want to know more. Like I want to know why. Is it a safety thing? Is there something in these more mature deer that it triggers them like, if I hang out with Tweedledee over here, he's going to get me shot? Like, it can't be something like just as cut and dry as that. It's just got to be something like they've been around the game for years and they don't want to deal with it. I got a shirt idea. I don't want to say it now, but like big bucks don't like drama. Boom.
Yeah. Well, hey, I have an idea too. Before you say too much, for all you listeners out there, this is an idea. if you would like to hear Aaron and I maybe do an episode of a breakdown of our One Giant Mistake series, the things we learned, the things that stood out to us the most, some of the the biggest laughs, the biggest learning moments, the biggest mistakes, like, buddy, I think we could make a whole episode out of this.
100%. Yeah, if you guys want to hear it, hit us up in the DMs. Let us know that you want that. Do it quick. Do it today as you guys listen to this, or tomorrow. Wednesday's a big day for us downloads too. Hit us up quick because we'll get it recorded and we'll get it out if we need to.
Yeah. Yep. I think, dude, there's enough there. Like, as soon as you asked me that question, I answered it, and then I started listening to your answer, and I'm like, shit, that's good too.
Yep.
And then I already have another one in my mind, but we're gonna save it.
Yep. We're gonna save
it. If the listeners want, a complete breakdown, hit Aaron up, hit myself up, let us know, and maybe we'll just do a full episode, Aaron and myself only, and we'll break it all down.
Yep, for sure. Okay, before we do get into this episode, though, hit us up with more questions. The question of the week, keep throwing those out there. And also go to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, leave a written review. Go to Spotify, do the same thing. That is always greatly appreciated. So here is this interview with Tommy, Austin, and Tony. All right, welcome to another episode of the Fall Podcast. Today is actually the end of the One Giant Mistake series. And this one I think is going to be a good one because we can see these guys over here doing it the Texas way at a bonfire. I'm jealous, boys, because you guys are drinking beer, with the sun shining. It is darker and shit here, and we've got a couple inches of snow in Michigan. I'm jealous. We probably should have flew down there and just did this face to face, to be honest with you.
We can do that next time.
Yeah. So we've got 3 guys with us here today. We've got Tommy and Austin, which are father and son. And then we've got Tony over here to the left if you're watching. And then we've got this giant deer in the middle of you guys that he's the star of the show tonight. And we brought all these guys in because all these guys have history with this deer. And it's an East Texas giant, like you guys were talking about. The deer just down there in your area don't get this big, which is so cool to me because David and I hunt in a lot of areas like that, where they are there, but they're few far in between. And I think we can relate quite a bit to what you guys got going on. So guys, thank you for joining us tonight. And I can't wait to get into this.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So Tony, I'm going to kick it off with you, man, because you've got most of the history with this thing. So kind of give us a synopsis of basically just like how this all came about, and when it started, and when you found out about this big ass deer.
So this was luckily like deer lease that I had gotten to grow up on. It was I guess I got to start hunting when I was around 7 years old, and we had the lease for about 25 years before it sold. So I pretty much grew up on it, and it was 6 miles from our house. So pretty much a square section, 600 acres, big woods timber like y'all are used to, and just grew up really, in the woods with my dad and grandpa, and from a young age, it really kind of just, we hunt family land, and anytime I would hunt my uncles, I always had to shoot a deer better than what I'd ever killed. So he didn't really care what you shot, but as long as you were there, it needed to be bigger than your last deer. Yep. So from a young age, I just kind of got into the habit of really trying to chase bigger deer. And so the Freak kind of came along. So my great uncle ran the lease for a long time, and he just got old and kind of passed it on to my dad. And when he did that, we kind of changed into like, hey, let's start growing some deer, and let's try to let these deer get from 4 to 5, really, and or just shoot mature deer. We had guys that were shooting 4 points, and it's not a big lease, so we had 6 people on the lease, so it wasn't a bunch of people. But over time, we just replaced it with really buddies or cousins or somebody that was on the same plan. And So we started hunting. We were consistently killing, 120, 130s. And we would know that there would be big deer around. You would see them occasionally, but this was right before camera. This was right when cameras are like getting SD cameras. Like we ran photo cameras like with the film, and we would just tell the 1 hour lady to just process pictures with animals and no wind, because you get 30 wind.
Yep.
And then they would, you get like 7 pictures. But anyway, so this is right when cameras were starting to come out, and I actually remember I was over hunting at my cousin's ranch, and it's bow season, and my buddy was on the deer lease. He was bow hunting my stand, and this was 2011, and he sent me video of this deer. He had 13 or 14 points, but you could just tell he was small. He was just young deer, small neck, and my buddy was kind of beating himself up. He's like, "Man, I should have shot him. I should have shot him." I was like, "Hey, man, it's okay. I think you did good. It was a young deer." Like, and I told him like, "Hey, this deer's gonna grow up and be big. Like, he's got a lot of points." And we were 2011 was a severe drought year, so I mean, the deer were hurting big time. Like, deer lost 15 or 20 inches that we had history with, and so anyways, 2011 there really wasn't. I saw him once or twice. We mainly hunted. In the 90s, they fenced this whole section. So it was like there's a pipeline around the whole outer section of the lease. And we would hunt that as deer would come and go from pretty much ours was a sanctuary. And we do have some hay fields and stuff around us, and oak mott's, and a little bit of open cover. And ours was kind of the big timber.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how we hunt it. We hunt the edge like that. And we one big key feature about this place is on the west side, southwest side, there's a landlocked like 250 acres. And so really, once I figured out, hey, nobody can, figured out that this was the sanctuary where all the deer were living. And they would come and go along through our woods too. But, it kind of felt like we had 800 acres, not just 600 for them to just stay safe on.
I got a question for you real quick. I'm going to stop you real quick. So did you say it was 2010 when your buddy hunted your stand?
2011.
2011. So this big deer shows up. I want to get into the weeds a little bit on this because, first of all, is he that good of a buddy for you to let him hunt your stand, and then this big deer shows up and he, I'm surprised he didn't shoot him. So how'd that all play out?
So, okay, I'm a little different than a lot of other deer leases. Like, so a lot of other leases, like you have your spot and you have that's it. You have your 2 spots. And then if you know somebody, so be it. But we'd always treated that like you have your spot, and then as long as you get somebody's permission, it's fine. And I don't know, I've just always been, as long as we're hunting the same deer, if I don't kill it, I want my best friend or dad or brother or whoever to kill it. So
or neighbor down the road.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just really how this has all gone, because you'll see, like, I could have killed a really big deer, but I was hunting my dad's stand, and I sent him to my stand, and he shot another big deer. So it was just, it all works out. And like, yeah, so I don't really mind that. It's not a big deal. Like, it's camaraderie more so than, I'm on more about the story than the chase than just the kill.
So in that year, 2011, he saw the Freak, and you named him Freak then in 2011. Is that when he got his name?
Freak. He was so, I really didn't know. I mean, like, he was just one that I categorized like, hey man, this deer's gonna be a stud, but I don't know. Like, I didn't have any history. He showed up in the rut, or October, and no other pictures. And I didn't have a ton of pictures of him. I mean, we run cameras totally different now, but I didn't have a whole lot of history with him to really. He didn't have a name yet, I guess, but he was definitely on my radar.
Now, were you worried at all about this deer, not making it through the year? I mean, how heavily hunted is your neighbors in this lease, or did you think this deer had a chance of like really growing into something the next year?
Well, it was really actually I thought we had a really good chance, and as Tommy killed him. But
we'll get to that.
No, like really, we only had our back neighbor. They would kind of weekend warriors, but they had a good like 300 acres of pasture land and solid oak trees. So they were good for killing one of our 3-year-olds a year, like one good one that you would hope would make it through. And so they were the main worries the whole time. And you'll see the next year when he started showing up over there, we got real worried.
So,
well, not only, on the flip side of having that worry is you have that giant piece that's landlocked. Was there any part of you that were, in the back of your mind where you're thinking, I have to find a way to get permission on that piece too?
I knew. Well, honestly, this was before hunt stand and stuff, so it was a lot harder to like go to the county commissioner tax office, but I knew some of the families that had land in there, and they hunted, so like it really wasn't gonna be something like they wanted the access to hunt in there. They knew what was in there, they knew it was a good spot.
Yeah.
You think about back in that 2011. Where that, like you said, that's kind of right on that brink of like people are getting trail cameras and the ones that they have are the best. So it's like if people knew about a deer back then, it was a lot of times visually actually seeing that deer on the hoof, not necessarily just these great trail camera pictures like nowadays.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, because I mean that's how it was every year before that. Like I felt like I had made some mistakes shooting deer that like I wanted to pass, but not having pictures of them. Like, just a 4-year-old that I killed a 4-year-old 6x6 12 point that was 132 or 133. But like, he was my biggest deer, but I was really like, man, I wanted him. If I'd have had pictures of him, I would have let him go type deal. And that deer kind of led me on the way. I was like, I'm not shooting another 4-year-old with potential. Like, that's my last one. And I just kind of, that's where we went.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, okay, this deer shows up in 2011, mid-October. Your buddy sees him, films him from the tree. And then a month later, on November 15th, you get your first glimpse at him, right? With a gun?
Yeah, and that was just, he come out on one of those lines. So my dad had a stand on that, on the landlocked fence line, and we would just we didn't run feeders back then. It was so close. We would just hand corn, and we would hand corn those fence line, or the right of way on the way in or out, or stuff like that. And he just came out, and he really wasn't much. I'm talking like 100-inch deer with just a bunch of points, or even if he was maybe 100, he was small, but he had like potential. You could just see there was a lot of stuff going on. And then, but I didn't really, the drought was really bad that year. We had, it was like no grass. It was just dirt, which is not normal for East Texas.
Do you guys see a big change in the drought years of like, you had a drought year that year. So the antler growth the next year, do you see a big change in the antler growth from year to year when a drought happens or when it is a wet season?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say like more so the drought year is worse because if anything, the drought year though then stresses the acorn trees. So there's really a shit ton of acorns when it's dry.
Yeah.
So it like kind of offsets it. So they really kind of go into the next year in good shape, in better shape than they went into that year.
Sure.
It seems like the summer is when they really like, that it suffered.
Yep.
I mean, 105 down here during the summer.
Yeah, me personally, I kind of see the same thing here in Michigan. Even though we're completely across the country, that I would much rather have those springs and summer where the precipitation is really well off. It seems like the antler growth does a lot better those years. But the funny part is I've heard some like different sides of the argument where some of the that if you look at some of the Boone and Crockett records, the years that produce the most, sometimes they're like correspond with drought years where it's like that doesn't make any sense to me at all. But it's like I've heard both sides of the story, but me personally, I like it when it's like at least average rainfall for the spring and summertime leading up into the fall.
Yeah. Definitely. So Tommy, you and Austin, what is your guys' approach? You have no idea that this deer even exists at this time, right? I mean, you guys are just kind of doing your thing over on your ranch and hunting. So how is your 2010 like shape, or I'm sorry, 2011 shaping up that year? Like what was going through your guys' if you can remember back then? It was a long time ago. Like if you can remember, how was your season going?
Well, actually, 2011, Austin would have been 6 years old. So we were hunting on some family land at that time. He had already killed his first deer. He'd already killed his first buck. And so we were still at the killing stage, to be honest. We had some family land, but the neighbors killed everything, and we were kind of we hadn't really adapted to the that old say, or it's an old saying now, but if you kill a deer because your neighbor's going to kill it, well, you just became that neighbor. We hadn't adapted to that yet. We were okay being that neighbor. And I mean, to be honest, I love seeing the boy kill stuff.
Yeah.
And we were he was doing a lot of learning. We were big on wind. I was getting into bow hunting because he was getting into rifle. So I did all my hunting the month before, and then once youth weekend got there, it was all about him. And I mean, that would have been your second season. So
yeah, because I killed my first deer when I was 5 years old. So
Man, that's crazy. That's awesome. I got a 5-year-old daughter right now, and I really want to get her into turkey hunting and maybe deer hunting this year. That's really cool. Do you remember much about that? Like when you were 5 and how that, like, was there one thing that stuck out to you? Like when you walked up, I remember the first time I walked up on my deer when I was 12, I was scared as shit, like to touch that deer. And I was 12 and I'm like, what just happened? You know what I mean?
my experience was kind of opposite to yours, to be honest. I grew up around all the hunting and everything, so I was used to seeing dead animals or whatever. So I shot the buck with my 243. We knew it was a good shot. We sat and waited for, I think it was like 15 to 20 minutes, let it bed down, make sure we don't jump it or anything. And so we walked to where we shot it, and he's walking around looking for blood, and I'm yelling at him, it went this way, it went this way. So he walks off looking for blood, and I just start going through the woods, and I see like the white tail in the dirt, and I'm like, Dad, I found it. And it was really my first deer. Like now when you walk up to a deer, you make sure it's dead, like kick it, whatever, just be careful. And I jumped right on it, like jumped right on top of him, started swinging his head, and he grabs me, he's like, hey. So that was really a learning lesson there, like learning how to approach a deer.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
No, that's kind of the same way. Like when I shot my first buck when my bow was 12, I watched him fall in a field, and then my dad's like trying to teach me how to blood trail, and I'm like, no, he's dead right there. I watched him fall. He's like, nope, we're taking it. And I was like, nope, we're running to the deer. So when I ran up there, it was like, I shouldn't say it was like a scared moment. It was a moment of like, what do I do? I've never done this before. So it's like, how do I touch it? How do I but I got to see a lot of dead deer and, grow up with it. But yeah, one of those things, being a dad now, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely, I can see why he wanted to send me through the paces, but I just wanted to get to that damn deer. I'll tell you that right now. That's really cool. That's awesome. So Tony, back to you here. I'm kind of going through the notes here. And so 2011, you see him with a gun out of your dad's stand. And then you had trail cam pictures of him through December and then gone, right? I mean, the season was over. Nothing happened. Was it in your mind at all to where like you were thinking, man, I really hope he makes it through that, like hopefully he made it through, or did you know season was over and you saw him, like, did you know he was going to be there the next year?
It was over. I mean, like if they didn't get killed by Thanksgiving, usually like I felt pretty confident they would make it. And like I kept pretty good handle or, communication with the neighbors. So I knew most people, they're directly around me that I would just stay in touch with and I would know if they killed anything. So I knew he made it, and I knew he was, because back then, like we shut off in January around here, and then there was like a youth weekend or something. Now we have a 2-week muzzleloader, but it wasn't. They didn't have that back then, so I knew he had made it, and so it was good.
Okay, so then coming into 2020 or 2012, I guess so that was 2011, 2012. This is where you got to be thinking like, man, I just kind of want to catch a glimpse of him. What does he look like? But then you get no summer pictures of him, right? I mean,
yeah.
So, I mean, how was the summer that year? Were you in another drought, or were you getting more rain than you did the year before?
It was another drought, but it was not as severe as 2011. Like, so it was, and we were right off the lake system, so it felt like we would catch some storms that other people would miss. So our place seemed to be okay, but it was still a statewide drought, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And but the deer had come in with a lot of acres, and like we're actually in pretty good shape.
That was a bumper crop.
They get that 11 year, and then and then even 12 year it's a bumper crop. But yeah, so it wasn't as bad. You couldn't see it on the deer, like they weren't like 15 inches smaller,
I got you. That's what I was wondering. Go ahead, David.
Oh, I was just going to ask, knowing that deer had survived the 2011 season, and here it is, the summer of 2012. Now, did you like kind of bump up the amount of trail cameras you were running or anything that summer, just trying to get eyes at them?
Man, so I was just, this was so long, and this was long ago, so it's like I got to recall. I was finishing college. I'd gone back to college, and then I was actually planning on. I actually started a CrossFit gym. Like I planned it where I left my job right at October 1st, and so to start the gym. So I had a lot of time, and I'd run cameras, but I just wasn't getting any of those deer. Like I had some other deer that were local, but I was looking for him in another 10-point that we called Little Man with split brows with a lot of history, but I could never find them. And and then, but I planned a lot better. Like I had bow stands hung in all the good spots, like at least probably 4 or 5 new bow stands.
Yeah. Now where you guys are located, how many buck tags do you guys get there?
So yeah.
2 as a resident?
At this time, it was 1. Like, so.
Oh, it was 1. It was 1 and 1. The management.
Well, so like this was before Texas now has like you can shoot a spike or an unbranched antler, or you can shoot a deer with 13-inch width or greater. And
okay.
So
yeah,
that's now. Back then, right before this, we were a 2-buck county, but we had just switched to a 1-buck county. Even so, you can kill 3 mature bucks in Texas now as long as they are in opposite counties. So you get one person for the most part. There's some south counties that you can kill 2 or 3,
which is really an important tidbit of this story. Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's I was gonna ask, like now it's really interesting that you guys were kind of coming off a 2 buck area, and then you were moving to a 1 buck area where it's like you knew that this deer had survived 2011, but you hadn't seen him yet in the summer of 2012. Like in your mind, it sounded like there was another buck that you maybe were interested in, but was there any kind of that thought floating around where it's like, I don't know. I only got this 1 buck tag. I think I'm going to try to hold out for him the whole year.
Once we got to hunting, it did, because we were initially hunting the deer. Like, so I guess no summer pictures. And then October 5th, I don't know, this was the first year I really found to move my cameras from hand corn to scrapes. And like, once I found scrapes, I found that I could find all the bucks on the place, it felt like. And I found him pretty quick October. And like that first video, he walked up to the camera and like it just blown up. I mean, he'd grown 50 inches, and he wasn't a giant, but he's 145, 155 inch 14 point now, and he just,
I don't know. That's a
I
giant.
remember I was like,
Bill.
yeah, no, he was. No, he was. Like, and I mean, at the time, he was a giant. Like, I remember, like, just being awestruck when I saw that video.
And you have to be, as much as you were awestruck in that moment of how big he looked, but he also put on 50 inches possibly from the year before.
Ridiculous.
So instant. I mean, that's the kind of growth anyone can dream of, right?
I want to put on 50 inches next year. Like, I think.
Yeah.
But it's my gosh.
But now in the back of your mind, there's got to be a little bit of you going, holy shit. If he puts on 50 this year, if he can do at least half that, that's 75 inches of already on top of what he already had. Like, good God. I'm telling you right now, 150 inch deer walks in front of me. He's not living another second to be. If he's a year and a half, dead in a wedge. Don't care. Don't care. Don't care. No, if he's 125, he's for me. I'm a hunter.
Right, we got a ton of those.
Yep. You don't want me to come to your property.
But no, we were hunting him then. Like, we still, I definitely recognize that, but we were still after him. I remember bow hunting hard for him, sitting in anytime the wind was right, or I was really trying to focus on that, or washing clothes and just bow hunting him right. But he really wasn't too regular. He was in and out, and I didn't really know where he went, or, I didn't have a ton of cameras, but where I was getting him was in the center of our place, so it was a long ways from the landlocked, but it ran, a creek system ran up there right out of the landlocked to it. So he would just run down it and run back. And so really I didn't have any ever sightings of him or anything. We went into gun season, still chasing him, all of us, trying to kill him. And so I guess me, my dad, my cousin, and then 2 or 3 other guys, buddies on the lease by now. So it's a pretty tight group. We get another big deer on camera, and he's nice. I mean, he's got really tall brows. He's a mainframe 8 with this. We really don't know what he is. I guess a few days before my dad ended up killing him, we found out he had a 3rd beam, and he had a lot of the same genetics that this deer had. And so gun season gets here, and we're kind of chasing the Freak and this deer, and we're still looking for a 10 point that I'd watched for 2 years. He's just a big mainframe 10 point with split brows, 3's longer than his 2's, kind of like that rib cage look. And those are the 3. And right off the bat, 8 a.m. Dad shoots. And I remember we walk up and we were like, "What'd you shoot?" You know, and he's like, "I don't know. He just had a bunch of points."
Oh God.
You thought he
And
shot him.
my dad had been like, you know, he grew up smashing everything, you know, like we were, and so he's been along, you know, on this ride of like, hey, shooting better deer, let's try and shoot older deer and so forth. And he had shot a good deer and then had like a 3 or 4 year old mess up, or not a 4 year old mess up, but a 3 year old. And so he had been along that. And it was cool when we walked up on this deer, and he was way bigger than we thought. He was a giant, and my grandpa was there, and my dad was there, so that was a really cool moment. And he was just, I mean, no history with the deer. The neighbor said he had pictures of him the year before, but it was a drought year, so like they looked so different. This was the year. This is 12, and you know, it's just a cool deer. Like this cluster gene, like it was real heavy on this deer that he killed, and so on, you know, I thought it was a freak, honestly, because I didn't know that this deer that he killed, really, we didn't have much. We had a few pictures of him, but cameras were not what they were now. Yeah. And so he ended up scoring like 161, and he had a 10-inch tine broken. So, I mean, it was just
Wow.
slam to the deer.
So when you walked up on that deer, you thought that deer your dad shot was this deer, the freak?
I thought it was the freak. I really was. You know, I was going in there, and then when we turned him and looked at him, it was like, oh my gosh, like his eyebrows, and he is way bigger than we thought.
Okay, I got you.
So anyway, so I think that Saturday morning, we hunted the next morning, didn't see anything. And actually, the next evening, I sat with my dad in that same stand, and still hadn't had pictures of that deer, but that little man buck come down the right of way, and he come down the fence line to us a couple 100 yards and cut in. And the whole time this was a 145-inch 10-point, and I was just like, man, I'm waiting on the freak. I'm gonna go ahead and hold off, you know. And my dad is just like, shoot that deer, like that is pretty. That's bigger than the deer I just shot. Like shoot him, like you know. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, man, it's fine, you know. I'm gonna wait on the freak. For whatever reason, I was tied into that deer, and so little man goes on, and that was kind of it, you know. Still intermittent photos of the freak. Nothing. I don't even know if I had him on camera, because it was right around Thanksgiving, and I was hunting my dad's stand, and right at dark, the freak came out and started eating corn at like 40 yards.
And with a gun, right?
With a gun. I'd been bow hunting him, but we're in gun season now, and I bow hunt pretty much strictly now, but I definitely will pick up a gun when they're big.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't get over how much weight he had lost in his pictures. You know, it's been they'll start rutting, or, you know, they'll start chasing early October, middle October down here. October 20th, you know, October 25th, they're jamming, you know, and for Halloween. So they've been losing weight. Man, he had just lost so much weight. You know, I was still new in my hunting but hunting, like, you know, experience. And he looked like a 3-year-old to me. And I just was like, man, I don't know. Should I let him go? And I finally just couldn't make up my mind to shoot him. Honestly, I just, for whatever reason, I went back and forth with it, and I just couldn't do it. I just was like, man, I guess the past few, not mistakes, but the past few times where I'd been disappointed, I was like, I'm not going to shoot this deer just to shoot him. You know,
I'm so glad he did.
Oh my gosh. I am biting my tongue over here, because we're talking about a 150-inch deer.
Yeah.
That is like 45 yards, and you got a gun. Dude.
And it would have
biggest deer was a 130 at the time.
Start squeezing about a pound and a half, and just touch it off. That's all you got to do.
That's what I was just gonna ask. I was gonna say, like, this would have been your biggest buck during the time.
Yep.
But honestly, I think that says a lot about Tony and the principles that they had. I mean, they really did. I mean, to be in the area that we were and how strict they were. Not strict as in you're going to get kicked off, but strict as in just as a word,
Yep.
that we're going to kill mature deer. And I became a better hunter because of it. So.
No,
Yeah,
I totally agree.
It's tough to do.
It really is, and we're the ones that's supposed to sit here and kind of give you shit, to be honest with you, because it's just fun. We're drinking some beers, and we're gonna give you a little bit of shit just because you got the big deer in the middle of you there, and it's like that would have been really hard for me to do. But you're also, even though you guys are, you say that, the deer don't get this big every day, every year in Texas. They don't get that big every year, a lot of places other than Iowa. But like, for us here in Michigan, if he's 125, like it's all relative, right? It's where you're at, that deer can make it another year. And it kind of goes back to what Tommy said about, being the neighbor. You know what I mean? Don't be the neighbor. And what he said about you just, you took a big step right there growing up. Looking at it now, you got good karma coming your way, and maybe you've already cashed in on that. I don't know, but I'm a firm believer in good karma. So. I'm a firm believer in good karma, man. And it's all about learning and all about, gaining that process and everything. And this is just a stepping stone. Now it's sitting next to you, and all you get to do is drink beer next to it, and it's not yours. Just saying.
Yeah. I memean, and like you guys said, it's, like how impressive was it at that stage? You're talking, a dozen years ago, and, not having necessarily a buck like that caliber under your belt yet, but you cared more about his age than what his rack showed you. Like that.
Kudos to you,
no
man.
doubt impressive. Yeah.
Kudos to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, whatever, I passed him, and I still, we didn't have any rules or anything. And I just kind of was like talking to the guys on the lease, like, hey, what do y'all want to do? Like, I think this deer might be 3, might be 4. I really don't know. Like, and they were still kind of wanting to shoot him. So we just kind of left it at that. And a day or two later, a couple of days, I'm not sure, I was sitting there, it might have been a week later, sitting there with my roommate, and he came out again. And it was like 3:00 in the afternoon, and, he's eating corn. He came out of our lease and was headed into the landlock. And I watched him for 15 minutes, and I could tell he was a 4-year-old, or he felt mature then. Like he looked it. He was longer bodied, and just his head looked a little, it wasn't. I didn't think he was a 3-year-old, but still, he just really. I'll tell you straight up, what kept that deer alive. He had short beams. He had like 18-inch beams, and they just kind of went up and stopped. But he had all those points, and so like I just couldn't make myself shoot him and then wonder what he would have been after he jumped 50 inches. So that's when I really kind of got on board, like, hey, let's try and like get this deer one more year at least. Like if he jumped 50, like y'all said, like if he can just jump close to that, he's going to be giant,
So did you thought from 2011, you thought he was a 3-year-old, right? Or a 2-year-old?
I mean, yeah, I think 3-year-old probably. Like the deer looked horrible in 2011, the drought, they were all underweight. Like it was just, and that might've been a little bit later photo. I don't really know. But I mean, I felt like he was 3 and then 4 and 4 here and 12.
And I don't blame you at all. We're giving you shit here just because we can, I guess. But I don't blame you at all. A deer jumps. Let's just be honest. Like a deer jumps more than 25 inches in a year. That's a big jump. I mean,
big time.
You're talking about a deer that's just a genetic freak. Like, it's just the right doe, the right buck that bred that deer. I don't blame you at all. It's interesting to see, the progression of this. So you have another encounter with this deer, and you decide to pass him again. So what was your roommate saying to you? Was he a hunter at the time? Like, did he know what was going on when you passed this deer? Was he just like, dude, what are you doing, man?
he was a hunter, but not really. Like he would go hunting with me. Like he wasn't. He was saying, "Hey man, shoot him," and my other buddy was like, "Hey, let Andrew shoot him." I was like, "No way, no way." I was like, "I'll let him see the 8-point, but we're not. We're gonna let this go." But no, he was kind of. He's like, "Man, you should shoot that deer. It's a big deer." And I took a picture of him through my rifle scope. That's way harder than you think, too. With no phone scope back in the day. That was just hope and a prayer.
So that you said that was on November 21st. Now 2 days later, you said you seen him again for 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So how did that encounter happen?
Same way, like just same stand. He's coming back out, just eating corn, and like I think I saw him 2 or 3 different times, like come out, eat corn, and then go back. This deer was a day walker. I mean, you talk about him. I mean, I've hunted ghosts, and he really wasn't a ghost. Like he moved around in daylight. It was just he moved around in the right spots. You know, he was he had no care in the world. It seemed like. I mean, it obviously he did, but he was not afraid to move in the daylight. It seemed. And about that time, the back neighbor that had killed some of the 3-year-olds in the past started getting pictures of him raw daylight underneath his feeder. And that's where we're like, man, we hope they do not kill him. And not being I mean, I still talk to the guys. I'm not like, I would have been happy if they killed him. I just was brethren they not kill him. And so
I got a question for you. You know, you talking about how the Freak's kind of, being quite a bit of daylight walker, but you also said, you mentioned something about how, he just didn't look that well, a couple encounters ago. Do you think that like maybe there's a possibility that he was that ran down, that he was just, hitting all those feeders or those corn piles out there, like just trying to, pack some weight back on, and that's what actually caused him to be daylight walking as much as he was?
Probably, yeah. It's more so than the other. Like, I mean, he had been rutting for a month and a half almost. Like that's when generally November 15th, your bucks are going to show back up on some type of food source after rutting, and they're like hurting. So you can get a lot of daylight action on them messing up right around that time frame. And he just was. I guess but he wasn't. That would probably be a better reflection of him versus him being a daylight walker, because I really didn't get a whole lot of daylight of him other than that time period.
Yeah. That's probably really equivalent to here in Michigan. Now we're not allowed to bait or run minnows or anything like that, but like you really watch those bucks, that kind of 7 to 10 days after they're kind of probably done breeding 2 or 3 does, where it's like whatever food source is nearby, like they're really vulnerable on that food source. So just for a short window, it's like once they get enough carbs back in them, then they're good to go back into, doing what big bucks do. But there's a small window after they ran down where it's like their bodies are telling them, hey, dude, you need to pack on some pounds again.
Yeah. So you go into passing this deer up 3 times in a week. And then on November 24th, things have changed. Yeah. Take us through the day of the 24th of November, because this is a big day for you, I feel like.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were still, the guys were still wanting to kill him, or, they probably would have killed him if he come out in front of them.
So what you're saying is around camp, amongst your group, a lot of guys are scuttle of like, if that deer shows up, I'm shooting that deer, right?
Right. And it really didn't. I mean, I couldn't blame them. Like I was kind of left it up to them if they wanted to shoot him. It was. I mean, guys were hunting my stand just right around the corner. We were after him, but I was pot committed. I was like, this deer is not going to die by me. And when he came out that morning, he fed for a little while. He was down in a ravine, and I was just like, man, I've seen you 4 or 5 times this week, and I just put it 6 foot above his back and let it sing. And Wait,
wait a second.
obviously, like I was young. I just was wanting the deer to live. And I was like, man, I got 600 acres here and 200 acres of the landlocked, and just, go away, get out of here.
I think it was a great idea.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, it was a great idea.
Tommy's on board.
Hold on.
Tommy's on board with this whole situation.
I was sick. I didn't have a picture of him for 3 weeks, and I just was like, man, what happened? Like, did it hit a rock? And like, I was like, I would never do that. Really, I was young, and
we got. Wait a second. We got to unpack this bag.
Let's unpack this a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The first thing I'm thinking is like,
oh my God.
holy shit! Like, this deer feels super comfortable. You've seen him 4 or 5 times. He's found himself a little honey hole he's gonna hide in, but instead of hey, we're gonna let him sit on it here. You just send one over his back, but then you're worried like they ricocheted somewhere. They both come back.
So your whole process was
awesome.
here. Your whole process here was to send one across the bow here. Let's just send a warning shot out there. Really, I mean, honestly, a warning shot for him to hunker down for a while.
That was pretty much it. Like, hey, you're gonna get killed if you keep doing what you're doing.
When you bear down on this gun and you're holding above his back, was he in your scope ring at all?
I made sure I was well away from him. Like, I remember not being not anywhere close.
This is a first.
I mean, I was shooting into a hill. It wasn't anywhere like just singing one through the woods.
Hey, just lets it rip from the hip.
Hey man, I was committed. I was ready. I just wanted him to make it.
Okay,
hey, to his defense, the deer made it, right?
It worked. It worked. We're giving you shit, but it worked.
I'd already passed him so many times. I was like, I've had you at 40 yards. You've had your angel has let you live. So,
I think I'm going to shoot one of his antlers off today because no one will shoot him after that.
Let's just try to shoot the left beam off. Oh. All right,
that's wild, buddy. I would be so nervous though, just shoot. Be like, oh man, like, what if the gun's off today? Something that just pumps them through the 12 ring.
Yeah. What if you ever get down on the gun and you're practicing and all of a sudden you just like you just jump? What if you do one of those jumps and you just send it right through the pump house, just double lung aim, just folding?
That would have been the redneck in me, but I tried not to.
Oh gosh. All right, so we send one across the bow on the 24th of November. Now he's gone for a good month. Like, he doesn't show back up. The plan worked. We're in business, boys. So he shows back up on camera on the 20th of December. What do you look like now?
Oh, he's fine. He was just checking a scrape, and he checked it and just rolled on, and wasn't anything crazy other than just finding getting pictures of him again.
Yeah,
and it was in a new area, not new area, but just area that I hadn't really run a camera before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably a big sigh of relief for you though at that day he showed back up.
It was. I was nervous just for the sake of like whatever, not something normal.
Okay, so then early January, pics show up of him and Little Man. They show up. Are they together, or was this just like different?
Together. Like, I got pictures of them together eating corn. It's middle of January, late. And I'd been trying all year to get pictures of Little Man and show the guys like, hey, this is the deer I saw open today. I just wanted documentation of him, really, and I had the history with him, and so that was good. I was glad to finally see he had made it and the Freak, honestly.
And now, is that after season? When did your guys' season end?
That was right in January 15th. It was over. So yeah.
Okay. And now we're gonna come into 2013, and you're thinking he's still alive. So now, if we look at historical data, this deer has never been on you in the summer. So
Correct.
are you hoping he shows up in the summer? Or are you like, well, probably not going to happen. He's more of like an October deer. He summers somewhere else. Like, what were you thinking there?
I mean, I was looking for him. We definitely ran cameras a lot. We were all looking for him. Like he was number one on the list for sure. Like, and we were we had ran cameras pretty good, but not picked him up. Like we were pretty confident he didn't summer there. There was a lot of hay fields around us. We were pretty much solid timber, so we had some home bodies, but we didn't really. We weren't a buck summer spot. We were a rut spot. So
Yep. Okay. So and then we're coming into August here. I think it's August, and he shows up, right?
it's actually September. So
September?
Yeah. So we were. I was bow hunting with the buddy that originally passed him. He's still on the lease. We were actually at my cousin's ranch, so some family land, and we were bow hunting over there. And yeah, my cousin, he had a video, and it was just hand corn in some like open wood, not really open, but some beautyberry was growing underneath, and he was walking through and picking that beautyberry leaves off the man, he had blown up. I'm talking blown up. Like he was everything you wanted him to be. Like it was. And my cousin, he knew about the freak, and he was like, "Man, look at this deer," and I was like, "That's the freak. Like that's him." Like,
You knew
like,
right
that's
away
him.
then? You knew right away.
Oh, like yeah, like it's I wish I had a better memory of something else other than deer, but
Yeah. Well, hold on. Let's talk about this for a second. So, the previous year you thought it was that, that 145, 150-ish mark. How big are you thinking he is this next year?
he's in the 180s, like easy.
Okay. So now he's put on at least, would you say, a minimum another 30 inches of antler growth?
I would at least another 30. Yes.
Yeah.
We got to let him go one more year. Let him go.
And my neighbor to the north like wanted to, and like he almost had me convinced. Like this deer was jumping so much, it was like, dude, if he can slide through one more year, we're hunting a 200-inch deer, like which is just the holy grail. I mean, like this is the holy grail as well, but just you don't have many opportunities at deer like that, and so that was only on that point, but. No, it did. That got squashed pretty quick.
So now we're in we're in September, and you get the pictures. Now, what happens all of October? I mean, you're hunting them hard, probably. Did you ever get a sighting of them or anything like that, or did you just kind of go MIA?
I never he just wasn't. He was there during the rut. Like he would come through, but I was not getting him on camera very much. Like I would get a bit here and there, but I never got really good videos, and it was very random. Right around Halloween, I mean, I was hunting a lot too. Like that's definitely, I probably put too much pressure. Like now I would definitely stay out until he daylighted or got way more. I would do stuff different, but I was hunting right winds and stuff, but just the pressure of being in there. Right around Halloween, I was hunting a stand on the edge of the landlocked, and he came out probably 30 minutes after I'd gotten down, and that was really the closest I ever ran into him. He came through and checked the scrape. I mean, just right underneath the stand and walked on out.
Dang.
And that was and then I did have opening day of gun season, which is just like a week later. I had a daylight video of him, but it was like not by a stand. It was just down in the woods on a logging road on a scrape that he come by that afternoon, and it was late, like last 5 minutes of dark. So that was really the last encounter I had with him was at that scrape.
Okay. So enter Tommy and Austin here. So when did this deer show up in your lives for the first time? Like, I guess maybe not sightings, but when did you first hear of a big deer roaming the area?
Well, I'd have to say it was probably September, dove season. You're hanging out with buddies shooting dove. We went down to a place down the road that neighbors that place, and we were shooting dove, and somebody said something about a big deer. And there's always rumors, but I would guess probably the first week, maybe second week of bow season. I can't swear it was him, but he jumped the road in front of me. I was headed home. He jumped the road and jumped into the property that I killed him in. And I didn't know, I didn't think I knew the people there, but I knew that if he was in that area, that there's a creek that runs through this whole road. I still live right here. I mean, I killed this deer less than a mile from my house, less than 2 miles from where I killed my first deer.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So I called several friends, I had a buddy that had a place, and I set up 2 tree stands, and I hunted pretty hard. I saw what I thought was him at 400 yards bow hunting, and I didn't have my binoculars. But I knew it was a mature deer, and I knew he had a head full of horns. And that's when I really decided, okay, this is a big ass deer. We're going to try to go after it.
Yep. Now, let me ask you this. How far is this from Tony's place where this deer's been living for the last couple years?
So where he shot him from the stand I was hunting was only half a mile.
Okay.
It was just a property just the other side of the landlock.
I gotcha. Okay.
And so hold on 1 second on so opening day came, and I sent my dad to my stand, and I was like, hey, you go hunt over here. You killed the 160 last year. I'm hunting over here. Opening morning comes, dad comes back to camp, and he's like, I saw a big deer. He was running a doe. He's like, I think he has a drop time. And me and my cousin just kind of looked at him. We're like, the freak does not have a drop time. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, he had a bunch of points and he's got a drop time. And we're like, man, he doesn't have a drop time. He's like, well, this is what I saw. And next morning, Sunday comes along, opening weekend. I'm back in my dad's stand. I send him over to my stand, and I hear him shoot 3 times. And he calls me. He's like, I got him. And I was like, what is it? He's like, he's got 15 points.
Oh, God.
And he sent me this flip-flown picture of it looks like a 120-inch deer. And, I mean, just points everywhere, but just horrible picture. And I get over there, and he's killed Little Man, which is just blown up into a 160-inch deer with splits on all his points and a 4-inch drop tine. And he shot him at like 40 yards out of my stand while I'm hunting his stand.
If you guys need 2 Michigan boys to come down and help you out with some management or anything like that, just call the bullpen. Call the bullpen, all right?
Yeah. So that was just a little side note. My dad killing those 2 deer made this whole experience more than anything.
Yeah.
So that's
for sure.
And I tell you what, just from the stories, not only seeing Freak sitting behind you guys, but the 2 deer your dad killed, I'm going to say it's pretty safe to say that there is a genetic of points down there where you guys are at. You're talking, each of these deer, they're north of a dozen points on all of them, where it's like, that's it. Maybe you have short beams down there, but it sounds like, a lot of tines up on these beams.
Yep. Yeah. So Tommy, you see a big deer cross the road in front of you, and you start hearing a little scuttle about big deer in the area. Now bow season comes around, you think you see, you couldn't swear it was him, but you see, or did you see him at like 400 yards? You didn't have your binos. You knew it was a mature deer, right?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, you just don't see a lot of full grown deer in this area because they get shot.
Yeah.
And when you see a full grown deer, um, and so that's when I really decided I was going to try to go after it. So I started hitting neighbors up. Austin, he had already killed. Yeah.
All my buck tags are gone.
You shot 2 bucks at that time?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Killed one that wasn't. So he killed one spike, and then he killed one. What
13 inches or bigger.
Yep.
So he killed an 8-point. A decent deer for a 7-year-old. And then he killed a cow horn spike. And whatever. But I had told him, I don't know if you want to shoot that one. And anyway, we went hunting the day. I picked him up early from school the day before we killed. And we call it the Freak, but at our house, he's also known as the Shelly buck. But there's a little bit of history there too.
Yep.
Tony's grandmother and Tony's mom were both teachers of mine in school. And I was a full blown turd. And I'm telling you right now, Tony's mama was always good to me. And so for this, I can't sit here and do this without saying that because every day was a new day with her. She didn't care what I'd done the day before. She didn't care what I'd done years before. She always treated me with respect, and I did her likewise, and we're still good friends. When we see each other, it's a big smile, a big hug, and so it's kind of crazy how life works out.
Yep.
But so I pick up Austin the day before from school early, take him hunting, and he decided to act a little bit like his daddy that day and acting like a little turd. Made a bunch of noise. It was different. It was weird. He usually didn't act like that. And he had no desire to hunt. And anyway, on the way home, we had a good long talk. And the next morning, he woke me up, and as a 7-year-old boy, he woke me up and he said, "Hey, Dad, I'm sorry. I'd really like to go hunting today." And I was still pissed off from the afternoon before, but I went and picked his little ass up and had to fight Mama too. "You can't pick him up out of school every day." And I was like, "The rut's on. Shut up."
That's a T-shirt, damn it.
There it is.
Shut up.
That's a good one.
And so I go and pick him up, and he's like, "Where are we going?" And I had already stopped and talked to this guy. He happened to be a younger brother of a guy that my wife went to school with that was leasing the property. And I asked him if we could hunt. And I told him, I said, "Look," I said, I'd like my boy to shoot a doe. But if a buck comes out, I'm going to shoot it." And he goes, "Man, good luck. There ain't no deer here." And I just kind of laughed. And he laughed too. And I said, "Hey, look, I don't want you acting goofy if I kill a big deer. There's a big deer running these woods." And he said, "Man, good luck."
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, big deer make people go crazy. If you show up with a big deer and put the tailgate down, people get in fist fights over that. I commend you for doing that. I would have done the same thing, man. Like, hey, if I come back here with a big deer, just letting you know right now, no ill will.
And I mean, he's a pretty big old boy. I didn't want to roll around with him. Um, and so anyway, we go in there and honestly, I'll let Austin tell this part because I mean it's really crazy.
So he picks me up from school. We get to the property, we're hunting. He's telling me, he's like, he knows there's like this big field that is planted and everything. So we track our way through the property. I'm just like kind of in shock. I've never been in these parts of the woods. So I'm in second grade, so I'm just there for the ride, really. And so we get up on this hill, we're overlooking this field that's planted, and there's a guy mowing it on a tractor. So he's like pissed off. He's like, well, this hunt was pointless. So we're walking back, and I see like an opening through the creek, and I'm like, let's go that way. Like, let's go through the creek like an adventure. And he's like, no, we'll just come back another day. I'm like, no, let's go. He's like, fine. So we make our way, we cross the creek, and we find the pipeline, and we're sitting on the pipeline, and I had homework to do like for school. So he tells me, he's like, if you finish your homework, you can rattle. And so I'm working on my homework. I finally get it done. I rattle a little bit. He rattles, and we look up, and at the end of the pipeline, we see a couple does. So I'm like, I have my gun set up. I'm about to shoot, and he has binoculars. He's looking, and he comes out from behind the does, and he thinks off the bat he just sees horns. He thinks it's an 8-point. So I'm not lying. He takes the gun from me, grabs the gun, takes it from me. He sees the buck. Yes. So I'm like sitting there. I'm kind of pissed off. I'm like, I was gonna shoot the.
This is awesome.
So then I'm looking. So then I got the binoculars. He's looking at the buck, and I still remember we thought it was just a decent, like, good 8-point, and it turns its head and like looks the other way, and we just see all the trash. And so he had my 243 with him, and it's probably about like 100 yards, you would say. Yeah, it's probably like 100-yard shot, and he shoots this buck, and it does the death kick. So I'm like, you got him, you got the big buck. I just take off running through the pipeline, and he's yelling at me. He's like, wait. And so he gets all our stuff. I had already jumped the fence, trailed the buck through the field. He gets to the fence. I'm standing on top of the buck. I'm like, it's a giant.
That is awesome.
So he gets over the fence, gets over to us. We're both in shock, to be honest, of this buck, because I'd really never seen the buck, been around a buck this big before at that age. And he's like, I'm pretty sure we both cried when we found the deer, because you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, going back to, and surprising that we talked about it, but going back to when he killed his first deer, I mean, as a dad, you're worried that he's going to run up on the deer, and deer's not dead, and I get up to the fence, and I mean, he's not joking. He was literally standing on top of the deer screaming, he's a monster. And I'm like, okay, yeah, he's a good deer. I knew he was a full-grown deer, but luckily my grandfather taught me a long time ago, if you think he's big, don't look at his horns. And so when I put it on him, I put it on his shoulder and pulled the trigger. And but when I got up to him, I mean, yeah, it's kind of, it's still kind of surreal to be with my son, that a deer that he rattled in the same creek bed, 1,000, maybe 2,000 yards from where I killed my first deer. I mean, it was amazing. I sent from the field, I sent 2 text messages to a couple of buddies. By the time we got to my house, there were 15 trucks in the driveway with their hands on this deer.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and then within a couple hours, they're like, I get a phone call. Man, you know Tony Shelly raised that deer, and man, I mean, it was just really cool because I mean, the next day we talked quite a bit. I mean,
yeah,
you know, Tony, what I'm 45. How old are you?
38.
Yeah, so I mean, he's quite a bit younger than me. We didn't, you know,
We weren't in the same circle, but
yeah.
I knew I had heard his name, and then he had gone. I knew he was older than me.
Yep.
And we got in touch the next day. I mean, we talked quite a bit about the deer. He sent me all the pictures, all the videos of it, and my cousin Colby.
Yeah, I got to score the deer. That was cool.
Yeah,
like I got to put my hands on him, and like it was over after that. Like, I mean, as far as for me, like that was the pinnacle. I mean, I didn't kill him, but it was second best, or you know,
Yep.
besides my dad or somebody. But like it's still like just that whole story. I mean, that means as much to me as if I killed him.
Heck yeah.
I mean, it was without a doubt the best time I've ever had in the deer woods. And I mean, my son and I, we've had he's killed 20 something bucks at 17 years old, and there are very few times that were better than that. I mean, the trophy is the trophy, but just I mean, the fact that I took a picture of him doing his homework, you know, that I let him rattle, that he chose the place to go to, and I mean, hell yeah, I cried that day.
I want to cry for you right now, damn it.
It's when you listen to that story, there's no question that everything that happened that day happened for a reason. You know, him wanting to cross that creek, you know, you telling him, you know, hell, get him out of school, then making him do his homework. You know, you told him, do your homework and you can rattle him, but you also knew, like, hey, do your homework, because if we get home and that homework's not done, mom's going to be pissed, you know?
Yeah.
Or it's like everything happened for the exact reason that day.
You know, I want to say something here. I might choke up here, but you know, being a young dad, I'm 35 and I got a 5-year-old, but like, you know, the way that you are treating your son, that's how my dad brought me up, you know, and like that right there is as original as it might sound. That's America. That is, even though, you know, I know how it is to try to get a 5-year-old around for school in the morning and get her to school and shit like that, but I look back at some of the things my dad did when I was 6 and 7, and he put me in a tree stand and strapped me in with a seat belt so I wouldn't fall from 25 feet up. You know what I mean? Like he had this old Datsun pickup and he ripped the seat belt out of it and he'd put a tree stand right next to him, and he would only let me sit on the platform. My feet would dangle down right by him, so he could, like, I think he thought he could catch me if I fell, but he'd strap me right in and I couldn't move. You know what I mean? But I'll tell you what, those are some of the best memories I've ever had in my life, man. And Tommy, I commend you for being a fucking grade A dad, for doing that and getting him in the woods, but still making him do the things, the homework, getting the priorities done. You know, good karma is a good thing, because right there in between you guys, for you being a good dad, that's what you get rewarded with. That's the way I look at it. You know,
Yeah.
and you're doing something good with the big man up north, man. So good on you.
Yeah.
I mean, really appreciate that. And karma happens fast, because I killed 140 hits 3 days later.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I tell you,
I remember that. I was like, what?
and I'll tell you guys, I actually want to piggyback a little bit off of what Aaron said. I've been thinking about this our whole conversation tonight. I don't, you know, hopefully you guys have listened to some of the past One Giant Mistake episodes, and more often than not, during those episodes, there's a discussion in there about you know, losing friendships with each other, and there becomes discussions about losing properties because neighbor and landowners, they can't agree. But when I sit here tonight, we're on this Zoom call and I see you guys sitting around a campfire, having some beer. You got a giant deer mounted in between you, but this is the opposite. It looks to me like it brought two people that didn't know each other together. I'm telling you guys, I'm not bullshitting you. Most of these stories, if you listen to them, they end with relationships, being divided, being broken because of a deer. So like Aaron said how he commends you about being a dad. I do too, 100%. But I'm also going to commend all three of you guys sitting there of like letting that deer bring you guys together. I can tell like there's no hardship there, and you guys are, just the way you guys are like giving each other shit, just like how guys do about a deer, about hey man, I'm happy you sent one over his back, that type of thing. But yeah, I want to give you guys a lot of credit because we heard the opposite of that a lot of times this year.
I mean, and you're right, but which says a lot about what I said about his mama, and it says a lot more about Tony than it says about me. I promise. This dude puts in the work, and a lot of people would have been bitter, but he wasn't. And I'm telling you right now, I'm pretty prideful, but he's a way better hunter than I am. I was on the lucky end of the gun that day, and Austin wasn't, and neither was Tony. Yeah. But no, I mean, without a doubt, Tony, his family is good as gold, and that's why that deer is called the Shelly buck at our house.
That's awesome, guys.
I love it, dude. I absolutely love it. Yep.
I honestly, this is the best way we could have ended this series for this year. I didn't know this part of the story. I mean, I knew that, Tommy, I knew you killed him. Tony, you kind of raised him in a way, but I didn't know the relationship you guys had, the small town relationship. I come from a one light town. Okay. The high school just near my town is like a graduating class of like 40 kids. Okay. So like I come from a small town, a lot like it sounds like with you guys, each other, if something happens, if someone's dog dies or runs away, about it. And the people that, so I relate to that. And that's awesome. These are the stories within the stories that we were hoping. I don't even know if we were hoping to get out of this, but we did, and that's what made it so much better for me. Yeah. The deer's giant. It's huge. Great story. But it's also like the community around things, and how hunting brings good people together to drink beers and salute and just be good people. I love it, man.
Yeah. Hey, cheers to you guys, man. I couldn't agree with Aaron more. This is the story to end the series on this year. Yep. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Yep. I thank you guys very much for doing this tonight. I know, Austin, you're in the heart of baseball season probably, and you got a game tomorrow, and I know it's 10 o'clock here. But I thank you guys very much for doing this and giving us the time. Tony, thanks for reaching out, and I'm glad we told this story. Thank you guys very much. I can't thank you guys enough, to be honest with you.
No, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
And really, I mean, thank you for letting us, for the last week, since Tony reached out, I mean, we've got to relive this day over and over. So, it's been, I don't use the word a whole lot, but it's been a true blessing. And,
that's cool.
So thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to sign off here with the last episode of The One Giant Mistake. Thank you guys very much for listening. And thank you guys sitting over there in a bonfire and not around any snow in the 50 degrees where I want to be. Congratulations on a big deer, Tommy. Austin, congratulations on everything you're doing and rattling up that buck. I mean, that's awesome. Tony, hey, thanks for raising him for him.
On to the next one.
There you go. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Have a good night.